I've been really enjoying my time with the Switch 2. Sure, its launch lineup may consist of Mario Kart, Cyberpunk, and a $10 manual, but it's been great revisiting old games with increased resolutions and smoother frame rates, all on a system that offers enough little enhancements and quality of life features to feel like something new. And with the release of a new console, typically comes a bunch of predictions and speculation of what we may see in the future. What games will be released? Will we get new types of Joy-Con colors or maybe special editions of Switch 2s? Will we finally receive cool UI updates like custom themes or an integrated music player? Or will the future of Switch 2 updates be bombarded with patch notes describing general system stability improvements? Because I sure love me some general system stability improvements. I can't get enough. My Switch has received so many stability updates. If it hasn't found stability by now, it should go see a therapist. So today, I thought it'd be fun to make a bit of a prediction video, theorizing about what kind of new software updates, services, games, and Switch 2 hardware Nintendo could potentially release down the line for Switch 2. Huge disclaimer, pretty much this whole video is a lot of wishful thinking and coping. I really don't think that even 90% of what I say will actually come true, and because a lot of this is probably never going to happen, I'm going to include a scale in this video that's going to indicate how likely I believe something is to come true or not. 0 indicates I'm on the copium hardcore, 100 is this is actually happening or very likely to happen. So let's start with the first prediction, which isn't even much of a prediction because it's already happening, is more Switch 1 games receiving Switch 2 upgrades. Now this is pretty likely to continue happening in the future post-launch because we've already seen Nintendo do this with games like Splatoon 3 recently. Splatoon 3, if you didn't know, received a Switch 2 patch which increased resolutions and made frame rates smoother across the board on console and handheld mode. The hub world that you walk around in now finally runs at a lock 60, so it looks so much smoother than it did back on the Switch 1. It's literally how God intended Splatoon to be played. One interesting note I did find out though is that because of this new Switch 2 upgrade for Splatoon 3, Nintendo actually had to go back to the Switch 1 edition of the game and downgrade certain background assets in specific arenas, and that was just so the Switch 1's performance could be kept toe-to-toe with the Switch 2 whenever you play online. I wonder if this is a trend we'll see in a couple of other Switch 1 games that also have online multiplayer, maybe like Smash Bros, for example. So that'll be interesting to look out for. For the most part, lots of first-party games already have Switch 2 enhanced modes, either given out for free or locked behind a $10 upgrade purchase. But there are a few first-party exceptions that haven't been brought over yet that have me questioning if they have farther plans for these games down the road. One of these glaring omissions is Mario Maker 2. It doesn't have any Switch 2 enhancements, it doesn't utilize mouse control or any of the new features, and I think this is on purpose because I theorize that Nintendo is probably saving a lot of these Switch 2 features for a brand new Mario Maker game that may release sometime in the near future. And instead of giving out Switch 2 features for Mario Maker 2 as a free content update, they most likely want players to spend a whole another $60, $70, $80 or whatever on a all new level creator Mario Maker experience. But I don't know, that's just kind of the Nintendo greedy capitalist side of me thinking of what Nintendo might be playing here when it comes to that. I feel like they're not upgrading certain games because they have plans for new releases or new sequels to those titles like Mario Maker in the future that they just want people to spend the big bucks on. So you never know. There's also other pretty notable Switch titles that haven't received a Switch 2 upgrade yet. Xenoblade 1 is another example. It is true that the Switch 2 does lock the frame rate at 30 permanently whether you play on console or handheld mode, and resolutions do look sharper on console mode thanks to dynamic resolution scaling, but when you play Xenoblade in handheld mode, it actually looks worse on the Switch 2 because now you're taking a game that was meant to be portrayed in a lower resolution on the Switch 1 screen, and now you're blowing up that resolution to fit on a 1080p display. So everything in handheld mode just looks a little more blurry than it did on Switch 1 now. I have a pretty strong feeling that down the line we will continue to receive a lot of these official patches. All I hope is that Nintendo and their publishers don't take too much time in the Switch 2's life cycle to just get these out in general, but I'm pretty confident that we'll continue to get a lot of these upgrades down the road from first party and third parties, so this is going at a 100% absolutely happening. Prediction number 2, custom themes. Will custom theme support actually exist for Switch 2? Will the Switch 2 have any ounce of joy and whimsy, or will we just remain with black and white? Who knows? Maybe Nintendo will finally figure out how to install PNGs in the background one day, but it is pretty concerning that we are here with a new console generation 8 years later, and we still only have 2 options in that setting screen with really no indicator to change them. I don't know, it's basic. It's basic. It's so basic that I'm pretty sure even one of the theme's names has basic in it. Actually, you know what? Let me check right now. Yeah, that's actually what they're called. Basic Light and Basic Dark. See, even Nintendo thinks their UI is basic. So like, what are they doing? Add some pizzazz, John Nintendo. The Switch 1 was definitely powerful enough to just slap down a PNG in the background, add some background music. I mean, the 3DS did that, and it had way more features beyond themes to personalize your screen with. Custom themes have even been a thing in the modding scene for Switch 1 for a while now, and modders have figured out ways to change the entire UI, add custom fonts, background music. I mean, they've put in the work. So really, I'm not sure what Nintendo's concern is here. They're so greedy nowadays. I mean, they could monetize custom themes if they wanted to, right? I mean, just like they did with the 3DS and the theme shop. So what's going on? The Switch UI has been around for so long, and they're obviously very adamant about keeping it this way, that I don't have high hopes in custom theme support. So I think for that reason, I'm gonna drop it at like a 50% on the likely to happen scale. And I give it 50 because you never know. It's a new generation. They might actually wake up and realize, oh wait, it's super easy to actually let players add a little bit of a picture in the background, or just something. And of course, it's not the biggest deal. You'll only be on the home menu for 30 seconds tops whenever you're choosing a new game to play. But coming from a company who used to create UIs that offered this much customization to a menu that's the equivalent to watching paint dry, you have to wonder what happened. So at this point, I'm so desperate for themes that even if Nintendo opened up a new feature to allow your screenshots you take in games to be used as custom background themes, I'd even be happy with that. So in terms of custom themes, 50%. But there's still one aspect that Nintendo still customizes, and that's the Switch hardware itself. We saw a couple of cool limited edition Switches last generation with the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch or the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom OLED. Limited edition Switch 2s feel pretty likely to me. I don't see why Nintendo wouldn't make a limited edition Switch 2 for, let's say, a major first-party release sometime in the future, maybe for an upcoming Zelda game or a Mario game. So in terms of special edition consoles, 90% happening, right? I'm pretty confident about that. As for if we'll see different colored Joy-Cons, I think we'll see Joy-Cons in different colors, but I think they won't be fully colored like they were on Switch 1, because Nintendo seems to have more of a subtle approach to the colors of the Joy-Cons this time around, only using red and blue accent colors on the analog sticks and on the sides of the controllers. I think keeping the Joy-Con colors minimal is actually a intentional branding choice by Nintendo. I think this time around they want to keep the accent colors because it does help distinguish the Switch 2 Joy-Cons from the Switch 1s. Like, if Nintendo were to release solid colored Joy-Cons for the Switch 2, your average consumer who isn't plugged in into the world of video games would probably not be able to tell the difference between a Switch 1 and a Switch 2. For your average Joe Schmo who only plays games like 1 to 2 times a year, or your mom and dad or your grandparents trying to find a Switch 2 for the holidays for little Timmy, that would cause a lot of confusion between buyers. I really don't think most people would be able to tell the difference between models. If anything, they'd probably believe that they're looking at 2 different models of a Switch 1. One that happens to be regular size and one that has a larger screen. And I know this might sound like a stupid take, but I could see this happen. I mean, there was talk from a pretty big YouTuber a while back, Beat 'em Ups, who was talking about how the Switch 2 box looks very similar to the Switch 1 box. And a lot of people were giving him a lot of crap because, you know, it has a giant 2 on the box. How could people be confused about it? But you just, people will. They can and will get confused about the difference, even if there's a giant 2 slapped on it, I guarantee. And the same consumer confusion can happen with Joy-Cons. So my prediction for fully colored Joy-Cons, 30% likely. Despite this though, I know that there's probably lots of modders who are already out there creating like custom shells for their Joy-Cons as we speak. And I'm also sure companies like Dbrand have been working on skins for the Switch 2 and for the Joy-Cons. So there's still going to be plenty of options, right? Okay, next prediction. I'm gonna put this one at a strong 90 because it just makes sense and I feel it's pretty likely to happen eventually, is Wii and DS Virtual Console coming to NSO. This would be incredible. The Wii and DS generation is when I personally got into Nintendo games, and these two platforms have an incredible library of games that Nintendo could drip feed players for years. Now, here's the bigger question. For all of the previous retro systems Nintendo has brought to NSO, they've also released a special NSO controller that is compatible with those games. So will we get a Switch 2 compatible Wii Remote and Nunchuck? And also, if we do get DS games, does that imply there's the existence of a Switch 2 compatible Nintendo DS controller? What would that even be? Would that just be like... they just hand you like one of those old fat DSs and they just slap a C button on there? I don't know. I'd buy it. I think that'd be cool. I'd use it. Of course, I feel like adding Wii on the Switch 2 would be a no-brainer, and it would be a perfect fit on the Switch 2. Mouse controllers could be used to simulate the Wii cursor, and the Joy-Cons already have a built-in gyroscope sensor, which can help to mimic the Wii Remote's various movements like shaking the controller around, so it's definitely more than possible. And because of the mouse controls, Nintendo DS games would also be a perfect fit. You could use the mouse mode to draw lines in Kirby Canvas Curse, or maybe to control Link in Phantom Hourglass, for example. I think these two systems eventually being added is a no-brainer. I do think Wii is more likely to be on there than Nintendo DS though, but who knows? I mean, Nintendo DS games were on the Wii U, but that did make more sense because you had that second screen that you were able to use as the bottom screen when you were playing DS games, so I don't really know if we'd have some kind of solution to figure out the second screen, or if we would just be showing both screens on the TV, which is most likely what's going to happen there. But I think both of these systems have a pretty good chance of showing up on NSO at some point. Now, I don't think these two systems are going to be implemented within the first few years of the Switch 2. This feels like something that would be added maybe 3, 4, even 5 years down the line. As you probably know, Nintendo loves releasing their classic games at a snail's pace on Switch 1, so I would not be surprised if Nintendo takes their time drip feeding us GameCube games over the upcoming months and years before we even hear anything about Wii or DS emulation, just because that's how it's been. So Wii and DS games coming to Nintendo Switch 2, I'm putting it like a 90 to 95%, very likely to happen, especially since we've had those games as virtual console offerings on the Wii U, which I remember enjoying. I was one of the only 3 people who actually got to enjoy that. So hopefully that's brought over to the Switch 2. One dumb prediction I have that will probably never happen in the slightest, but would still be kind of neat, is Game Help. If you have a PS5, you may know what I'm talking about. It's a feature built into the UI that provides contextual hints and video walkthroughs based on where you're located in the game and what objective you're trying to pursue. It's a cool feature that I think is pretty underutilized, especially since Game Help is locked behind having a PlayStation subscription. But it's kind of a neat feature that I think I've only seen done on this console, and it would definitely be possible to add some kind of game assistance feature on Switch 2. Game Chat itself has already shown us how the Switch 2 has enough RAM to be able to display a video or at least some kind of text or something on the sidebar, right? So the system should have no problem displaying a hint or a in-game video in some sidebar displaying where you should go next, or maybe to help you guide you on finding a hidden collectible. Now, do I think this would actually happen? No, not at all. I'm putting this at like a 10%. And the reason why is because I think Nintendo is keeping all of their game help and assistance features on the Nintendo Switch Online app. We've seen that especially with Zelda Notes that has released in the last couple of weeks that has like a built-in map. It has Zelda going full-on GPS mode on you.
Proceed far south.
It even has dailies for some reason. So I think when it comes to adding any kind of game assistant features built into the Switch UI, I just don't think that is likely to happen. They seem a lot more smartphone focused. So for this reason, I'm giving this prediction around a 5% likely to happen. Hey, speaking of smartphone apps, anybody still use Nintendo Music? No, you forgot what that was? Yeah, before working on this video, I already forgot that Nintendo Music existed, especially because I've already been accessing Nintendo Music for years. It's called, YouTube. But you know what would actually be cool is if Nintendo implemented Nintendo Music as a built-in music player app onto the Switch 2 UI. Like imagine while you're in game, you could open up the quick menu to enter a Nintendo Music widget that has its own media controls and its own interface to be able to choose a new song or playlist while you're playing a game. Like imagine playing a Switch game while jamming out to Dog Show Beginner from Nintendogs. Wow, I think whoever made that song has a hidden talent, and they should keep that talent hidden. I think this would be a pretty awesome addition to the console, but I'm also skeptical on if it's something that Nintendo would actually do, so I'm going to put this at like a 30%. The reason why I give it as high as 30 is because Nintendo Music is only something you can access if you have a Nintendo Switch Online subscription, so that does make me think that there could be a chance, like just to provide additional value for NSO members, maybe there's a chance that future NSO members might be able to access the app built in on the Switch, because I feel like most Nintendo fans are probably accessing Nintendo software and content on their consoles and not on their smartphones, so it would just make the most sense. But also, it makes a lot of sense, which is probably why Nintendo won't do it. But who knows? Who knows, man? Anyways, those are all of my silly Switch 2 hardware software predictions. Like I said, don't think many of them will actually happen, but a gamer can dream. Anyways, before I go, here's just me yapping about a couple of game predictions I have for the Switch 2, just because if there's one thing we can be assured of, Switch 2 is going to have a lot of really good games. And here's just some of my predictions slash hopes and dreams of what I'd like to see. Okay, let's start off with some first party predictions. First off, Mario Maker 3 or some kind of maker game from Nintendo. It feels like it is absolutely meant to happen, especially because they're not updating Mario Maker 2 with mouse control support. I feel like this is inevitable. Will it be called Mario Maker 3 or will it be some new maker game from a completely different IP is to be determined. I don't know. Next up, Mario Odyssey 2. It could happen. Nintendo has done a sequel for a big 3D Mario game in the past, and I could see this genuinely happening because just with the mechanic of Mario being able to inhabit various creatures, I mean, you can really expand upon that with a sequel. And I don't really think many people would be complaining about a sequel to Odyssey, especially since we didn't really have any TLC that gave us new worlds. New F-Zero game. It could possibly happen. You know, I feel like a lot of fans say like, oh yeah, this is the year we could get like a new F-Zero game. And then a whole console generation passes and the best thing we get is like a F-Zero costume in Smash Ultimate. But you never really know. I mean, it could genuinely happen, especially since Nintendo acknowledged F-Zero with F-Zero GX being available on GameCube. So who knows? Who knows? A new Animal Crossing is absolutely bound to happen. Animal Crossing was one of the highest grossing games on Switch 1, so there's no doubt in my mind that Animal Crossing is going to come. I've seen a couple of weird rumors online that have said this next one is going to involve like some city building or city planning or something, like we're bringing more urban life to Animal Crossing. I don't know if that's true or not. It sounds fake to me. The only thing I ask for the next Animal Crossing is that players are able to connect and travel over to your town in less time than a feature-length film. And if we can get that feature, that would be great. Thank you, Nintendo. Strategy games feel like a no-brainer for Switch 2, especially with mouse controls. I could see a new Advance Wars game and a new Fire Emblem game coming sometime to Switch 2. If those games don't somehow come to Switch 2, I'd be very surprised because they were literally made for mouse controls. New Star Fox game? Maybe? I don't know. I feel like a new Star Fox game is just as likely as saying we'll get a new F-Zero game. Personally, my new Star Fox game would feature Slippy as the main protagonist. It would only be Slippy, no other character in the game, and the game would be called Star Slip. That's the logo. That's what it looks like. I made it myself. Please, John Nintendo, please make Star Slip. Please. New Nintendogs. Imagine the possibilities. When the dog puts his paw on your hand, you can feel his paw using HD Rumble 2. This is the power of the new Switch 2. You can pretend like you have a dog. What else? I know I wrote down a couple more. Let me check real quick. Then 10 frogs. Feel the frog croak with HD Rumble 2. Okay, so those are all of my ideas. I've run out of ideas. But wait, there's more. Please don't leave. Don't unsubscribe. I have more predictions. Hooray. So first off, the Persona remake games. I'm talking about Persona 3 Reload and the upcoming Persona 4 remake. These seem pretty likely to me. We've had Persona 5 Royal on the Switch 1 before, so I don't see why these wouldn't come to Switch, and Atlas has a pretty good reputation with Nintendo nowadays. So I feel like it's not a if these games ever come out, it's more of a when. They just feel like they'd be a perfect fit. Halo Master Chief Collection. Now this would be really cool to see, and because of how Xbox has kind of been dealing with their midlife crisis recently and saying, that's an Xbox, that refrigerator's an Xbox, you're an Xbox. I genuinely do think there's a good chance at actually seeing Halo come onto Switch 2, which is really weird to say. It would kind of make perfect sense though, especially with mouse controls. I know I keep on harping on mouse controls, but they're actually really good on Switch 2, and being able to aim with precision using mouse controls feels like a no-brainer. Nier Replicant Remake. This could happen. We did get Nier Automata, or is it Automata? I think it's Automata. We did get Nier Automata on Switch 1, and so I could see Square Enix possibly move over Nier Replicant just because we're finally running this game on a system that has the specs to back it up. Call of Duty, whichever one we're on now. That's a good description. I'm not in tune with the FPS genre. As you can probably tell by my game taste, I'm not too thrilled or psyched about the shooty bang bang genre. But yeah, I think this one is pretty likely to happen. In fact, Microsoft pretty much promised that new Call of Duty games would be coming to other platforms over the next 10 years. So it seems like this is pretty likely to happen. Death Stranding. I don't know why I put this here. I think it's just because I've been playing Death Stranding 2 recently, and it's actually good. But yeah, we could get Kojima's weird Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus game. I could see that happening. Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 remakes. These would be awesome to see. I am a huge Resident Evil fan. I love the original games and the remakes equally. I know that some of the Resident Evil games were on Switch, but they were cloud ports, I believe, meaning you could only play them if you connected to the internet, so it was basically like a Google Stadia edition. So now that we actually have beefier specs, we can definitely run all 3 of these games now. It just depends on if Capcom thinks there's enough of an audience who hasn't played the games yet who would be willing to play them on Switch 2. And finally, just another random one I have because I love me a good 3D platformer, and that's Psychonauts 2. If you haven't played Psychonauts 2, it is just a super fun, extremely imaginative, creative 3D platformer with the premise that every level you explore takes place inside someone's mind. Psychonauts 2 is such a fantastic 3D platformer. If you haven't played it, I think it's on Xbox Game Pass on PC if you want to give it a try. I can't recommend that game enough, man. Last but not least, I got some wild, insano style predictions. I got some real crazy bozo stuff that will probably not happen, but I gotta mention it anyways. Drawn to Life on Switch. Drawn to Life was one of the all-time goated childhood games on the Nintendo DS, and if we could get a brand new Drawn to Life, that would be incredible. I love those games so much. I would make a bunch of weird, wacky little goobers. And do I even need to say why it would be a good fit? It's because it has mouse controls. Oh my goodness, whoa. And while I'm going through DS nostalgia, Scribblenauts. Let's bring Scribblenauts back. That's another fantastic game. I think the last time I played it was on the Wii U. I really think Warner Bros. Could bring that back instead of trying to funnel way too much cash into a failed live service game. What else? What else do my notes say? Kirby and the Forgotten Land becomes Kirby and the Remembered World. He cured his amnesia and now he knows where he is. Wow. And you know what? Screw it. Let's get a new Garfield Kart game. Let's call it something like Garfield Kart 2 All You Can Drift. I mean, imagine if... Huh? Hello? What do you mean it's real? But that is all of my Switch 2 predictions. Do you think that Nintendo will provide us with at least 10 to 20% of what I mentioned in this video? Or do you think Nintendo will just keep on going? Stability! Let me know what you think. Thank you all for watching. If you excuse me, I'm going to go and pre-order Garfield Kart 2 All You Can Drift now. And I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty pumped for it. You know, sometimes gamers, dreams do come true. And cut.